Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Black Business Roundtable. I am your host, Doug Blacksher, broadcasting to today's episode and to you live from the city of diversity, Oakland, California. We are happy to be back. After our summer break, I hope you enjoyed the rebroadcast of a few of our past shows over the last 3 weeks. A special thanks to our sponsor, Magnolia Engineering and Construction, for their continued support. And we congratulate Tammy Willis on their new website, www.magnoliaengineeringandconstruction.com. Today's show highlights politics in Oakland and the latest debate this week between candidates running in the August 31st special election for California's 18th Assembly District. We discuss one of the hot issues from the debate, which is housing, noting the National Low Income Housing Coalition report with our continued weekly guests running in this election. We also have joining us a guest rooted right here in Oakland, California, that has composed our musical intro heard from time to time during some of our broadcasts. Our guest today performed at the esteemed Carnegie Hall as a soloist, is an author and a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity, Incorporated. We will get a sampling today of his musical wonderment, so get ready to enjoy quality entertainment on our show today. Our guests today include Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, California's 18th Assembly District election candidate, is back to give us the latest tea and words on the street of her David and Goliath. Political race, ballots have been mailed, so we need every vote counted. Don't wait. Mail your ballot back in today. August 31st is just 12 days away. Our final guest today is a notable musical performer from the Oakland, California, and rooted first of all in church. And he's a godly man, got his foundation at the church. There are many sides to Mr. and Dr. Phillip Harris. Active performer, music director, music researcher, teacher, and classically trained singer extraordinaire. My co-host, my man who rides, and when I say rides with me, I like to say I got the Marines with me.
All right. All right.
Yes, sir. I got the Marines, man. I don't have to look left or right. I could go straight ahead because I got the U.S. Black Marine.
You know it.
Larry Lewis is back, and we're glad you have returned and are doing well, Larry. You look great, my brother. Good to see you, man. And I've been praying for you. We all have been praying for you. Larry is a retired Marine Corps aircraft maintenance data system analyst, Desert Storm veteran, and heart transplant recipient. I look forward, as always, to your fresh perspective on the Black Business Roundtable. Welcome back, my brother, Larry Lewis.
Thank you.
Today we're going to be missing our therapy, our mental stress reduced person, our doctor of psychology, Dr. Ashley Coleman. Dr. Ashley Coleman's birthday is tomorrow, so she is starting today enjoying her 21st plus birthday. Dr. Ashley, if you're out there listening, I hope and pray that you have a wonderful day today and especially tomorrow on your birthday. God bless you. We mentioned We mentioned this political race previously and will do so on the Black Business Roundtable podcast show. She is a woman and she is campaigning. Val Demings, 2022 Senate campaign, former Orlando police chief seeking to unseat little Marco Rubio. Little Marco, pack your little bag, put your little tennis shoes on, and go home. You've done enough damage in the Senate, so we're going to send Val Demings is going to send you packing. In Florida, running for the Senate, her tagline is "Never Tire." Election date November 8th, 2022. And now for the news of the day, Larry, take it away.
Hello, folks. On this day in history, August 19th, 1916, white mob lynched multiple black people, 5 in number, just months before the United States enters World War I, courtesy of EJI, Equal Justice Initiative. Visit www.calendar.eji.org for more information and to read the full story of this day in our Black and Brown history.
Thank you, Larry. My brother, when I hear your voice, I'm telling you, man, I'm so glad you were here with us. And all the contributions that you've given, not only to Oakland, but to Alameda County, to the state of California, and to this country. And let me emphatically say, I'm proud to know you. I'm proud that you served as a Marine in the military of the United States of America. And that brings me on to some since we don't have the doctor today, I think I'd like to see if you and I can address some issues that we can relate to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think we talked a little bit about this earlier, but you being a Marine, serving our country, you see what's going on in Afghanistan right now, right?
Yeah, I do.
Let me ask you some of your thoughts, because you were almost there 20 years ago and you had trained men and women as a sergeant in the Marine Corps. Can you give me a little bit of insight, or give us all some insight on what Marines do and who deploys them first? Thank you, sir.
Well, I'll tell you, Doug, it starts off with a few of my concerns about Afghanistan, but also even the military. As you know, not too many of us brothers end up, especially from inner city, end up in the military. I chose the military in 1980. Remember, I was a foster kid who had been living basically in a situation that I was granted, that I was happy to have. But when the time came, when you turn 18, you start to age out. And by aging out, it was time for me to go. And I had to leave, so I had to go somewhere. I wasn't really ready to go to college or school. And so my options, being as it was part of our family business anyway, my original family, I joined the military. A lot of young men don't join the military these days, but I just need you to know that there are options that I didn't have anywhere else. The option to get 4 hots, 3 hots in a cot. All right. The option to earn a living and to get out of the inner city, which I knew that had I not gotten out was going to be trouble. So as for the my perspective, I guess, on joining the military. Right now, a lot of young people don't join the military, and I understand why, because you're going to war. They told us when we were there that there are 2 types of Marines: those who are in over in campaign. That means they're over in the wartime situation, and those who are going to the wartime situation. So you're going to go. And right now, we just lost, I think, 2,300 military members were killed in Afghanistan. Now, this was 20 years ago. I retired in the year 2000. From 1980 to 2000 was my time I spent in the military. And in in 2001 is when 9/11 took place. So I got out a year before everything kicked off. And all the men that I had trained and women that I had trained were overseas. And I kept up with some of them for a while. And I know some of them lost their lives. I don't know how many at this point actually lost their lives. So the war over there is very near and dear to me. I actually got saved when I was in Desert Storm as well. I was baptized in the Persian Gulf, and I accepted the Lord Jesus Christ at that time. Um, I have some issues, I have some concerns with him. We were there for 20 years, right? 20 years?
Yeah, yeah, and
You know,
I'm glad you brought that up because that was my next question to you because
hmm
I can sit back here and say I don't like Afghanistan, the money they spent over there, they should have spent over here. One of the questions I want to ask you, my brother, to our many listeners out there, what do you think about what's happening in Afghanistan right now? I mean, you, if no one else, can give us a perspective, a black perspective. Thank you, sir.
we didn't have a clear and defined objective, but that seems to be the way we operate. Every time we go over in campaign, is we don't really know why or how long we're going to be there. We're going over there to do what? All right. 20 years later, what did we accomplish, Doug? What did we
Nothing.
accomplish? You still have the
Spending a
the
trillion. Wait a minute.
Taliban
We
is still
accomplished
free.
spending $1 trillion. We
Yeah, yeah,
accomplished
yeah,
spending a
yeah.
trillion dollars.
Yeah. Now, what could we have done with that $1 trillion here, right here in our country, when we can start to consider the people that are homeless, when we start to consider the people who are in a poverty situation? We could have changed the game, but we didn't. We chose to go over there, and now we have really absolutely nothing to show for it. I do believe it was time to pull out. It's been time to pull out. Once we train the Afghans over there, once we give them equipment, once we give them money, once we teach them strategy, what else can we do? I believe that at this point, maybe we should be providing a little air support, long range air support, but they should be able to fight their own battle at this point. But if you're not
And
willing to fight, if you're not ready to fight, then why should we keep giving our young men over to fight a war that really isn't our war? And
look,
that's what I think is happening.
well, you mentioned something to me today. I'm going to go off script real quick. You mentioned
Mhm.
something to me today that the president of the United States can authorize the Marines could go in without the approval of Congress or Senate. Can you elaborate on that a little bit, please? Thank
Well,
you.
when they say Marines own, we are the president's own. That's what they call us. All right, and that means that the president has the um, has the authority to send us to a campaign without actually getting approval from Congress. We go over. We're first to fight. That's what we're trying to establish ourselves. There's already a military army. There's already a military air force, and there's already a military navy. So what we do, we have to be able to do better than everyone else with less. That is why when you hear the advertisements, they talk about maybe you could be one of us, the few, the proud, the Marines, because it's about being one of us. It's about wearing the uniform. It's about having the mentality of a Marine to improvise, adapt, and overcome in all situations. That's what we learn as Marines. It's a little bit different than other branches, but that's what we learn as Marines. And so when he can send us over to do whatever we need to do, whatever they need to get done, Doug, that's basically what that's about.
Well, I want to say this, brother, and once again, this is going off script. I know
Mhm.
our lady who puts it together probably scratching her head, but as a black man
Mhm.
living in America,
Mhm.
having a family who has a rich tradition of joining the military, how do you feel? How did your dad feel? And how do you think men and women, and specifically men back in the First World War, Second World War, who are
Mhm.
going across the waters to defend and protect and honor this country, and then come back home to get dirt kicked in your face, to get water sprayed on you, to not get the same resources that your white counterparts get? Can you elaborate out on that, Larry? Thank you.
I think with my father who joined the military in 1945.
Wow.
That was the year of segregation, integration,
Right.
um, and World War II.
Right.
The beginning of World War II. I think that my father was proud to be able to finally join the military and be considered somewhat equal, at least integrated, at the very least. I can imagine the challenges that he faced, being as it was new, all right, and that all the benefits, all the opportunities that he's supposed to receive, he probably wasn't receiving. Remember, we're still in Jim Crow at this time. We're knee
Right.
deep in Jim Crow.
Yeah.
And I can imagine the challenges that he had. I'm actually proud of him for sustaining that challenge and doing the full 20 years and making provisions for us to leave Virginia, all right, and pick up the family, four children and a wife, and bring us to the Bay Area where there were jobs available in shipyards. So I'm proud of him because he did that. But the history of the military, but especially with respect to blacks, yeah, in the World War I, they were hanging soldiers that came back
Wait a minute.
from the
Hold
military.
on, hold on, Larry. Let me make sure I understand this.
Lynching.
The
Yeah,
same black and brown brothers,
yeah,
specifically black men, who are going overseas
yeah,
to protect this country,
yeah.
to honor our flag, would come home and get hung, shot. So tell me that one more time, because it's hard for me to conceive that, but I know if anybody knows, Larry Lewis knows. Go ahead and
I
say it
tell you,
again,
brother,
brother.
America has a torrid history, brother.
Mhm.
We know what America is about.
Right,
We just got to read the history books, and not his story, but ours. We
right,
need to understand what's really going on and what is really happening. Our people have been fighting and scratching for years, all right, to get that 40 acres, to get that mule.
right.
And the time is finally coming where we have progressed. We have progressed. We digress too. We seem to go up and down. The last 20 years, we've been on a downstroke, all right? But prior to that, we were moving up. Think about this. Think about how many blacks were working as servants, how many
Right,
women were working as servants back then in, let's say, 1945. We could say 1965,
right.
all right, in our time frame. You think about that and you consider the fact that there was probably 98% of the women were working as servants.
Wow.
Well, what were they 20 years later in 65 and 85? So we have progressed. All right. We just have to continue that. Black Wall Street.
Our man, Danny Glover.
you know, you know.
You are amazing, Larry.
No, see,
Larry,
that's
let
how I
me
feel,
ask you.
brother.
Let me ask you another question, Larry.
Go ahead.
What do you think? What do you think America should do next regarding this Afghan war? I mean, what are your deep thoughts? Not just as a layman like me, someone who hasn't served for 20 years, put their
Mm-hmm.
life on the line to protect
Mm-hmm.
our freedom. But
Mm-hmm.
what do you think America should do next? Thank you, Larry.
Well, brother, first of all, I think that America keeps trying to, and these are my opinions, so please keep that in mind. But I
Absolutely.
believe that America, we keep trying to fight a war by playing by the rules.
Right.
The unfortunate part is that the Taliban is not playing by the rules.
No, no, they're
All
not.
right. Now we have, if you've ever, I've only seen the vast arsenal of military weapons that we have one time, and that was during Desert Storm.
Right.
And it's enough to scare you, and you're on the right side of it
Wow.
because you're talking about tons of arsenal coming at a person, coming at a
Hmm.
country. And so what I think is that, you know, we should stop trying to play by those rules. We could easily torch the place, in other words. Now, I know that there's diplomacy and all that stuff, all right? But meanwhile, the Marines are over there. That's what they want. They want to torch it, get it done, go sweep up afterwards, all right, and get out of there. That's what they want. I believe, like I was saying, I think I was trying to say this a little bit earlier. Um, we should have secured. We should secure the people. I believe, um, so that they're not running around like this. Because I believe this looks like a situation where we're not really. We don't know what we're doing here. We got people that are scrambling all over the place, scampering, trying to get away from Taliban. You know, I'm watching what's happening on the news right now. But if we had to secure those people from the giddy up, put them in a secure place. We had
Right.
flown the civilians out, flown the women, the people that we needed to fly out, fly them out while the military was still there. Maybe that's what we should have done.
Right.
And then after we finished, then we could have picked up and taken off.
Right.
The Afghans, they should be ready, bruh. They should be ready. They have been trained for 20 years, Doug. 20 years they've been getting training. 20 years they've been getting equipment. For 20 years. That's a long time. They've received strategy. We've taught them how to go about fighting. All you got to do is stand up and fight. That's what we're doing. We're losing men over there, 2,300 of them, because we're over there fighting.
Right. And they
We're
won't fight for
giving our
themselves.
lives for freedom. Yeah, but they're not fighting for themselves.
Right. Exactly.
And
Well,
so
let
I
me ask you
believe that
one.
the only thing we should be providing at this point is air.
Is air support. I think you froze up, my brother. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Okay.
That's what
There
I
you
feel right now. And I believe that maybe we could take some of that money, all that money we keep giving them,
go. A
and we could
trillion
come back
dollars.
home and we could handle the we can handle the what you call it the
Got a little technical difficulty. Okay. Well, from my understanding, Larry, I'm going to fill in since you are tuned out for a minute. From my understanding, Larry, this is my perspective too. And once again,
mm-hmm.
oh, there you go. All right. Now, once again, this is my perspective. Oh, there you go, Larry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me ask you one more question because Janani Ramachandran should be chiming in any second now.
Mm-hmm.
How now do you feel after returning from Desert Storm as a disabled war veteran, 20 years of service? How does that make you feel? We spending all this money over there in another community, and don't get me wrong, it's not their fault, and we should be doing whatever we can. But we have Black brothers and sisters right here in America who are being not afforded the opportunity of an education, of generational wealth, of knowledge and skill that will help them get better care of their families and strengthen the Black family. Well, what's your perception on that, brother?
I wish the government would take care of us the way they take care of some of the foreign countries.
Right, exactly.
You know, I have the same perspective that Kaepernick had. I love the fact that he took a knee because what he's saying is he's saying that America is not holding up to what it says it is. And until they do, I'm not going to salute the flag.
Right.
I love the fact that I'm proud of what my service has brought. I'm proud of what I've done. All right. I'm thankful for the opportunity to go over and see the world, all the world, to
Right.
travel and to be in different areas. And I'll tell you, the third world countries, they do not have it good. We don't know how well we have it here in the United States.
Right. Right.
However, to be a Black American is different than being a white American.
Exactly. It and
And that's how I
can,
feel.
can you say that again for our hearing impaired? What you just said. Say that again, Larry. Some people want to
Brother,
act like they can't hear what you just said.
it's
Can you
out
say that
it's
again?
hard out it's hard out here. It's hard out here for a Black man. I'll put it that way. It is hard out here for a Black man. Right?
Right.
I don't care how much education I get, how many degrees I have, how
Mhm.
much money I make,
Right.
what I drive, it does not matter.
Exactly.
We're still gonna be called the same thing.
You know,
And you know
I
what I'm saying?
you know, and I'm going to say this, and I think you'll understand. Malcolm X said it excellent back in the 1960s.
Mhm.
He says, "What does a white man call a
Mhm.
black man with a BS, MS, PhD?" And
Mhm.
the interviewer guy says, "What do they call him?" He said, "They call him a N."
You're right.
So I'm
Right.
not going to use that
Right.
word,
Because
but they call him an N.
yeah.
So I'm glad. I'm glad you said, because you are a very, very educated brother. You were a teacher. You're a principal of a school. You're a Marine. And when a white man looks at you, what do you think that they see? And I can tell you the answer before you even tell me, but I'm gonna let you tell me first. What do you think they see? Most, not all,
You
but most.
you already said it. You already said it.
Thank you.
And the
Thank you.
thing that we have to do, Doug, is we have to learn to teach our young kids, our young people, to learn and understand that they have a responsibility to achieve. All right, they have a responsibility to be the best that they can be. All right,
Right.
to spend times in the classroom, in those books, learning what they need to learn, and getting out and using their God-given abilities to do the things that they need to do. There
Exactly.
are no excuses. No more excuses. We just got to get
Larry,
it.
Larry, I am so proud that our Marine had you there training these young brothers and sisters, because when you got out a year later, I think you said that they bombed the World Trade Center, so you missed it
Yeah,
by a year.
yeah.
And you know, I received the picture that you put, or I saw the picture that you put on Facebook. Man,
Right.
that, I mean, that
We were
took
we
me
were
back.
we were young, 18 years old, just freshly 18.
Oh my God. I mean, thank you, brother, for sharing that, because
That's all
you know
right.
how when we were younger, we used to go hang out and do stuff. We used to call the old guy, "Man, that's triple OG, triple OG." Now
Hmm.
we are those triple OGs. But
Yeah,
the
yeah,
difference
yeah. At least
between
double.
them and we are reaching out and spreading the word that
Yeah,
education
yeah,
and knowledge is going to make a difference in this
yeah,
generation and moving forward. It's very hard for young people to identify with what we're saying, because it was very hard for us to identify with older people with what they're saying, what they were saying. So, Janani's
There's
running a. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say there's one more thing that that we need to share with those young people when we talk to them. That
Please do.
you cannot put your finger anywhere in history, in Black history, in African history, and you cannot put your finger anywhere in it and not pull up the church. So don't
Right.
forget God. Don't leave him out because he's the biggest part of the equation.
Exactly. Thank you, brother. Thank you. And you are a God-fearing man. So,
Absolutely.
I,
After all
I,
I've been through, I had no choice.
well, that's why you still here, because
Yeah,
you, God has a mission for you. So don't you
that's
forget
right.
that. And
That no,
you are doing a great job in
thank you.
completing God's mission for you. So, I don't know, Janani's running a little late, but I'm going to introduce her anyway. And we're going to hope that we can get her in very shortly.
Mhm.
Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, California's 18th Assembly District Special Election. Janani will hopefully join us and dive into her latest debate earlier this week, and she had a debate last night, and the latest National Low Income Housing Coalition report and cost of living here in the Bay Area, which reflects our dire circumstances by the large number of homeless minorities. First, and these are some of the questions I'm going to be asking Janani once she comes on, is discuss the 4 points of the report she shared on Instagram. Full-time minimum wage workers cannot afford a two-bedroom home anywhere
Yeah,
in America,
yeah, yeah.
especially not in the Bay Area.
Right.
Number two, 93% of the country, including California workers, cannot afford a one-bedroom apartment. Three, 97 hours of work a week. More. Hey, there goes Janani. I'm gonna finish reading these off, and then I'm gonna let you take it over.
Okay.
97 hours of work a week, more than 2 full-time jobs, is what it would take a minimum wage worker to afford a 2-bedroom rental. And number 4, average hourly wage of renters in America to afford a 2-bedroom rental home is $18.78 to $24.78 per hour. Now, Janani, please take it away. Let's put it on mute. I want you to light it up, girlfriend, because I'm going to tell you something. I got to say this. You were bad last night. I had to watch the rerun and then the rerun to the rerun. When you have your opponent sitting there speechless and talking about how you're picking on them and can't debate the facts, that's when you know you're a winner. Take it away, my sister.
Oh, that felt good. You know, there are so many ups and downs of this mess of a campaign, but last night felt like a winner. Because, you know, the difference is that we speak the truth. We share facts and stories from people in Oakland who need better political leaders, who need better elected officials. And, you know, I think that comes across to voters and listeners that we're doing something honest here. We're doing something to better our community, to support our neighbors, to grow our small businesses, to provide living wages, which I believe you were just talking about right now. In Oakland, it takes over 87 or 89, I'm forgetting, hours a week of a minimum wage job to afford a 1-bedroom apartment. And that is unacceptable. People should be able to work one full-time job and afford rent and to put food on the table. And what happens today, especially during the pandemic when we've seen a lot more community suffering, is you have to work 1, 2, sometimes 2.5 minimum wage jobs to make ends meet. And or you're dropping out of school because you need to make more money and you can't focus on having one job and your education, or you don't have as much time to take care of your family because you're sitting and working for these different jobs. The thing about the minimum wage is that it didn't always used to be this way. Minimum wages have remained flat for too long. If wages had increased at the rate of our productivity since the 1960s, we would be at a national $25 an hour. Perhaps, and still, salaries like that are far less than starting wages with groups like the ILWU. And for many of our communities, believe wages should actually be living. So it's not a foreign concept. This is something that many institutions that respect their workers, like certain labor unions, are fighting for and have fought for.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, the ILWU, because as you know, we both know President Trent Willis. Now, last night, while listening to the debate, your, I won't say opponent, the person who is running against you, she stated that she has all this union backing behind her. Can you tell our listeners what's the difference between, and all unions are important. Let me get that clarified. My father was a Teamster. He retired a Teamster. When he passed, his pension flowed over into my mother's, which is helping her to live comfortably right now. But can you tell us, in your opinion, and I'm sure you have one, what's the difference with these unions that are backing your opponent and the unions that are backing you? Thank you.
Well, firstly, I do have to say these endorsement games, when it comes to a lot of politically motivated labor unions, it's a game. That's exactly what it is. because I sure have a lot of union members voting for me, volunteering for me, nurses, teachers, janitorial staff, caterers, all sorts of folks in the trades, all sorts of people who might be endorsing a different candidate, but are voting and spreading the word about me, which is fascinating because it shows where people's truth really lies, where people feel like there can be a change maker. And that's one thing I respect so deeply about the ILW, and why I'm so glad why I'm so honored to have their endorsement. Very early on, we connected, and they were not interested in endorsing someone who's going to win them favor with the Attorney General. The ILW is not a fan of the Attorney General right now because of what he did to Howard Terminal.
Let's get our audience brought up to date and knowledgeable. Who is the Attorney General related to that you are running against?
Rob?
You don't even have to answer that. It answered itself. The Attorney General his wife is running against Janani Ramachandran, and they have millions of dollars. And I'm saying this, they have millions of dollars in corporate money. So if you have millions of dollars in corporate money, who are those corporations going to be expecting to get and I'll let you take it away from there.
That's the thing. Corporate money has bought politics for far too long. They've bought elections. They have bought votes. They control so many of our policy decisions, and that should not be the case. My opponent has $250,000 from the gambling industry. But especially what's interesting about that, many of the casinos and card rooms that have given to her have been sued by our former Attorney General for money laundering. This goes beyond the values of issues about feeling one way or the other. These are crimes, and these are institutions that had their licenses revoked by the last Attorney General, trying to now curry favor with the current Attorney General.
Larry, do you have any questions? Because I got one more question. I have a ton of questions because let me tell you something, girl, you lit it up last night. Larry, do you have any questions for our soon-to-be a new Assembly representative?
No, it's just funny that, you're talking about politics, and it's always that way. I mean, it's just so much about politics that it just kind of turns your stomach, We can never get anything.
You're fading in and out, Larry. Okay, well, Janani, we are hoping Larry comes back so we get that last question, because this brother, he's a Marine, and we need the Marines out here with us right now.
Yep.
Okay, well, we're going to. Okay, here, I think he's coming back now. Go ahead, Larry.
We can never get anything done because there's always somebody throwing a fork in the mix. All right, and every time you see it again and again. It's such a challenge, and money just controls everything. Mm-hmm. So we can never get things done the right way. Mm-hmm. But it's coming, right, Janani? It's coming, right?
This is the new wave. This is the beginning. This is the first of so many elections where we're going to show them people power is stronger than your big corporate dollars. We can win the battle. And we've gotten this far. People were shocked that we got this far to the top 2 without a dollar of big corporate money. And that's surprising them. And we are going to continue to surprise them all the way to Sacramento. And I'm excited because especially in this district, Oakland can see through all of the nonsense that money can buy, the glossy mailers, the TV ads. People want something real. And that's what our campaign is offering, a vision for something honest.
Janani Ramachandran, let me be perfectly clear when I state this. We have you scheduled next week, and we have you scheduled the week after the 2 days after you win the election in 12 days.
Yes.
I have told everybody I know, and I've told everybody I've told to tell everybody they know. I've told Larry, who's on the down in Southern California, to call back up and tell people who we know. You are the best candidate. And I'm not saying the other candidate isn't a good candidate, but you're the best candidate to fill those shoes. And I am honored, proud, and thankful that you have allowed me to participate. When that morning when we ran around and stopped at all those small businesses, let me tell you something. Since I've been back there, they said, this sister is bad. All of them, everybody. And that is a lot of folk, because you know what I'm talking about. So thank you for joining us. Look like we lost Larry. I'm sure he'll be right back. Janani, keep up the good work. And we got you, girl. We got
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Okay, well, we look like we have lost Larry. I'm sure he'll be right back. So I'd like to say, for all of you undecided people out there, all of you people who are waiting on that big back corporate candidate to win and change things, if you don't take a look at where we are today and the politicians who are getting paid while their constituents get played, then you deserve what's going to happen to you if we don't change the landscape of people who we are supposed to be electing to represent us. I hope you can seriously think about what's going on out here and how we, the voters, because a politician can't get elected unless we vote for them. Start using your brain. Think about it. If they're getting richer and other people are getting poor and things aren't changing, then we need to change those politicians. I can see we have our next guest up here. So since Larry is off the screen, I'm going to do a quick sponsorship. And Dr. Harris, I will bring you on very soon in 1 minute. We'd like to thank Mr. Donnie Glover of the BlackUSA.News. Oh, there go Larry right there. Larry, I didn't want to take... Yeah, can you go ahead and read that sponsorship? We have our doctor here, and we're not talking about medical or mental. We're talking about our groove doctor. Music
right
doctor.
Now. Thank you, Mr. Donnie Glover of BlackUSA.News and BeMoreNews.com. And be sure to tune in to Chap and Friends on Mondays. Party Marty, Let's Talk on Tuesdays. For Magnolia Engineering and Construction, our vision to further the presence of Black women in the construction and engineering industry through key partnerships and building contracts in the municipal, government, and transportation sectors. There you go.
Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Well, that brings me into our next guest. Let's welcome Dr. Phillip Harris, winner of the Encouragement Award from the Metropolitan Opera National Council audition. He is an accomplished author and wrote a book titled Songs and Spirituals, The Life and Music of Jacqueline Hairston, about a Black American woman composer. Today, we will discuss with Dr. Phillip Harris his history and how his love of music started, rooted in church. We will learn about his educational journey and the degrees he has worked hard to obtain. Voices, degrees from University of California, Irvine, Bachelor of Music. The University of Michigan, Master in Music. And the University of Nevada, Las Vegas Doctor of Musical Arts. This will be our first show with some noteworthy entertainment. So, audience, get ready to hear some music from our special guest. Welcome, Dr. Harris. How are you today, sir?
It's a pleasure to be on, Sir Blacksher. I appreciate this opportunity and thank you for having me on as well. Larry, I appreciate you both. And it's just a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to be here with you all. Thank you for that very kind introduction.
Well, before Larry, let me get this out. I've
Okay.
known this young man for at least a couple of decades. And one of the things that I can tell you, Dr. Harris, you're a man of integrity, a man of ethics, and considering you're half my age, if more of our young Black men would follow the path that you have laid down, the path of securing your future in the music industry. And most young people think that if they're not rapping and hopping and skipping, it's not cool. I've listened and attended several of your both plays and operas. I missed the Carnegie Hall, but you bring a perspective of music that very few of our Black brothers and sisters are hearing out there. And I congratulate you for that. And I challenge, and I want you to hear this industry, the media industry, I challenge you to start looking at Black men and women who have the background and the training to make a difference in the quality and the visual of opera and plays in this country. Thank you, Dr. Harris, for being that person who who bears that flag of genuine intelligence and talent to this industry that shows such a shortcoming for African American people. Larry, take it away.
Yeah. Each one reach one and then teach one, right? Nice. First of all, Dr. Harris, very impressive resume, brother. Thank you for being here. I got a question for you. What are your upcoming endeavors for this fall and winter that you would like to share with our audience today?
Well, I'm a man of faith. So as they say in the church, first giving honor to God, who is the head of my life. You all are very too kind with all of your introductions. It's a pleasure to be on. It's great to be in communion and in community with two great, brilliant brothers that I am looking at right now. So I appreciate you both. I am just a vessel. And but in terms of what I'm looking forward to coming up, there are a couple of things. Most immediately in the fall and winter, there are, I guess, maybe two or three immediate things. The first thing is that I'm having the pleasure to music direct, bearing all of variants and such that are floating around. Grateful for Dr. Noor Harris and Dr. Banks that came on and talked all about COVID. I believe they are coming on next to continue to enlighten us about that. But bearing any COVID incidents, I'll be music directing at a company in Ross. I believe it's in Ross, California. It's called Mountain Play. And I'll be music directing Camelot. We've just sent out some Camelot's an old, an old time musical, and we've sent out some. We've sent out the information for folks that have already done callbacks. We did Zoom callbacks, and so that was, it's been quite a time doing everything on Zoom, and so I'll be music directing that. And then from a performing standpoint, I will have the privilege of going to Reno, Nevada, on November, I think it's November 19th and 20th. There are two shows of a Leonard Bernstein opera called Trouble in Tahiti. And I'm one of the singers in this trio section. It's like this Greek chorus, essentially, where we're commenting on what's happening with these two. There's a married couple that's just going through, the challenges of what it is to be married. And so commenting on that, and then, or singing in that, rather. And then hoping that all things will go well and everything will work out. I'll be with the Oakland Symphony singing in a fantastic work called Sanctuary Road. I would love to talk with you all you all about a little bit more about this if we have time. This concept of Sanctuary Road, because there's a lot of history behind it. It talks brilliantly about the Underground Railroad.
Nice.
So I'll be the baritone soloist in that, and that'll be with Oakland Symphony Chorus and the Oakland Symphony at the Paramount Theater.
When is that, Dr. Harris?
That is January. What is that? Friday, January 20th. I believe that's the 20th, or maybe that's the 21st. I can't remember the date, but it's that Friday, whatever that Friday is. I think it's the 21st, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a wonderful work by a composer called Paul Moravec, and it's relatively new. But if I may just put in an extra plug for it, it is a musical work that has to do with a man named William Still, who was one of the conductors of the Underground Railroad. We often talk about Harriet Tubman, but William Still, unlike Harriet Tubman, had the ability to read and write. So he was able, and of course, what Harriet Tubman did was remarkable, not being able to read and write, the way that she was able to navigate. I mean, you talk about a sister that was smart, as sharp as a whip, without a formal education.
Yeah, Moses.
So William Still was not, he was able to read and write. And so because of that, and because of all of the enslaved, they were not slaves, they were enslaved, they were forcibly enslaved, they were not slaves.
Dr. Harris, can you say that part again? Because some of our young brothers and sisters get it incorrect. Say exactly what you just said about slaves and enslaved. Thank you.
Yeah, we have to be very careful with how we talk about slavery in America. The Africans that were forcibly brought over from West Africa through the horrific Middle Passage, they were enslaved. A lot of people label them slaves. They were not slaves. They were kings and queens and architects and dentists and doctors and musicians and carpenters. They were brilliant people, but they were enslaved. They were not slaves. And so,
Dr. Harris, thank you for clearing that up, because I hear, and I don't mean to cut you off, but
no.
I think Larry, you're sandwiched between Larry and myself, but we hear our people saying, "Oh, you a Kunta Kinte, you were like your slave." Them white people didn't tell us, "Come on over here and help us build them, and we want you to help us build America." They said, "Get your butt in the bottom of that ship, and we taking you over there." So that's what you call enslaved. And we are the descendants of kings and queens and dentists and doctors and of royalty people.
That's right.
Thank you, sir.
That is right.
Our people. What does the word say? Because of lack of knowledge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You knowledge is power. And so anyway, just to wrap this up, William Still was able to record and to write down. After he freed a bunch of Africans that were enslaved, he then went and interviewed them and asked them a bunch of questions, and was able to write down and record all of their accounts of how they escaped from slavery, what it was like. And there's one piece in there that I'm singing that talks about a man, and they're all of these names: Clarissa Davis, Edward Giles, Barnaby Grigby. Look up some of these names. When you read their stories, it's just phenomenal. There's one man who put himself in a crate, found a way to nail himself in a crate, poked a hole in the crate, and was there for 26 hours. Sometimes when he was being transported, he was upside down. He talks about how his eyeballs were about to burst and his head was about to explode from being stuck in this crate. But it was for the fact that it's not even for the fact, for the hope and the chance that he might make it to Philadelphia in order to be free.
Yeah.
So that's just one story.
Yeah.
It's a remarkable work that talks about, we often talk about Black people that were enslaved and what they faced in the field. But it was a whole, or in the house, but it was a whole nother element that they faced just trying to be free.
Yeah.
And this talks about what it was like for them just to try to escape, to be free.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you call it? Sanctuary Road?
Sanctuary Road.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife
Yeah.
and I would love to be able to make that.
It is a fantastic, very moving
It
one.
sounds like it. It sounds like it.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, I got another question for you. Let's close our interview with you singing baritone with the music selection that you've chosen for us today.
Yes, I have. I'll just play a short little audio. This is the song is. What am I starting with? I'm starting with. I don't know if I'll play the whole thing. Maybe I'll have time for it. But faith is the guide of my life. So this is my soul has been anchored in the Lord.
Oh yeah.
You may know this from Douglas Miller, who made this song quite popular. This is my rendition of it. It's certainly not Douglas Miller, but I had the great privilege of working on this piece with a great friend of mine, Damian Sneed, who is a fantastic musician. And I'll just play a little excerpt of this, if I will. This is from a CD I put out a couple years ago. So I hope you can hear this.
Mm-hmm.
Though the storms keep on raging in my life, and sometimes it's hard to tell the night from day, still that hope that lies within is reassured. As I keep my eyes upon the distant shore, I know He'll lead me safely to that blessed place He has prepared. But if the storms don't cease, and if the wind keeps on blowing, my soul has been anchored in
So I'll just stop it right there. I would encourage anyone that may be listening to type in "My Soul's Been Anchored in the Lord," Phillip Harris. Hopefully, it'll show up on YouTube. Well, it is on YouTube. So,
Well, I'm gonna say
Well
this, young
done.
brother, and I'm gonna call you young brother because you are young, but respectfully speaking, doctor, we need to have more role models like you out there. White media is so quick to put perpetrators of crime, drugs, rappers out there with their pants hanging on their kneecaps and say, "This is America."
Unknown caller.
They don't have the balls to put a real black man, a real young black man, on these radio shows, on the interviews, on the news. They want to show the worst representation, in my opinion. Now, this is my opinion, even though I got Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce behind me. This is Doug Blacksher, live from Oakland's opinion. We need to have more black men like you out there who are setting the example. I liken you to be similar to the Huxtables. And I'm not going to, if you're black, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I got a couple of questions for you, my brother, before we go to break. First one is, can you share your early education and how your musical pathway began to take shape starting with your K through 12 education? Thank you, doctor.
yeah. So I'll make this brief. I bounced around a lot in schools until I got to about fourth grade. So I started at actually Sequoia Community Preschool, which is no longer a preschool. It's just a church. It was a church then too, but it also was a preschool. So I did preschool and kindergarten there, and then went to Joaquin Miller for a year, and then went to Redwood Day for 2 more years after that, and then really found a home at St. Leo the Great School in Oakland with the esteemed principal who's still there, Mrs. Sonia Simrose. She's fantastic. So if there are any, especially parents that may have kids that are particularly Black parents, kids that are looking for a great education for your children, I highly encourage St. Leo the Great School for K through 8th grade. And then
Where's
I
it
went
located?
it's located on 4238 House Street. You can tell I've been there a lot because I know the exact address. 4238 House Street. So it's a wonderful school. Then I went to St. Mary's High School, and then I went on to different universities and such. But I want to just go back quickly to my church training, the church background. That's really shaped a lot of who I am and what I'm still trying to become. I got my start musically in the church, at Church by Side of the Road, but then it was really formed at Imani Community Church, and it was just a fantastic. I still am very close with a lot of friends and family there, and so I would say the biggest start with my musical experience started in the church with folks like Terrence Kelly, Janice Reed, David Tigner. They really gave me, and then of course I cannot forget. I must mention. I don't think she's watching, but my 103-year-old grandmother, who introduced me to opera when I would go visit her over the summers and for Thanksgiving. That was the first time I actually got exposed to classical music, was from going to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and hearing it.
Let me interject real quick.
Culture.
Your 103-year-old grandmother, who I know personally, who was one of her best friends who just passed away recently, but who was a world-renowned poet. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so my grandma, I think this was maybe in the 80s, she got to know Dr. Maya Angelou as well. And so that was, she, so there were several, Thanksgivings that we spent with Dr. Angelou. Just they became close over the years, and Maya Angelou had a house in Winston-Salem. I believe she still does. And so, again, this is not my doing. This is just, it's the Lord, but the Lord has afforded me, and by the Lord's grace and mercy.
That's right. That's right. Hey, you know something, brother? You heard of St. Pascal's?
Yes.
I went to
Yes.
St. Pascal's in Bishop O'Dowd.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we used to play against
It's
St.
probably about
Patrick's.
50 years before you, but
Hey, Larry, I'm glad you brought that up, and Dr. Harris, I'm glad you both brought that up. Larry, you and I graduated from an Oakland public school back in 1980. Larry, you moved out.
Mhm.
Of the city of Oakland, and you were down in Southern California after you left the military. You were able to raise your family. Let me ask you something, and I'm sure I know the answer, but I want all the audience to know the answer. What school? Oh, let me rephrase that. Considering your upbringing in public school, and that's where I met you at Castlemont High School.
Yeah, right.
If your kids were living here in Oakland now, would you send them to Oakland Public School? Thank you for
No,
your
sir.
honesty. And
Without a doubt.
and I'm glad you said that, because my daughter grew up here in Oakland, and she went to St. Lawrence O'Toole. When she graduated from there, she went to St. Joseph in Alameda. And let me tell you something. It was extremely expensive keeping her in that school. But one of the reasons why I made sure that I had Rob stole, killed, chill to keep her in that school is because when she graduated from St. Joe in Alameda, and St. Joe is the same school that basketball star Jason Kidd went to, and some other very accomplished people. When she left St. Joe, she got a 4-year scholarship at USF in San Francisco, where she obtained her Bachelor of Administration in Business Administration and Marketing. She went on to finish another year and has her master's degree from the University of San Francisco. But I wanted to emphasize that our public schools in Oakland, now they may be getting better, I hope that they are, but I wanted to make sure that my daughter had a much better chance of being successful and competing on a collegiate level, not in basketball, running track, playing hoop, golf, or whatever. I wanted her to be able to compete academically. And if you're listening, Oakland Unified School District, you need to step your game up, because some of our students, a lot of our students, are not prepared when they go to colleges after leaving Oakland Public School. So that's not a kick in the butt, Oakland Public School, that's a fact. Okay, second question I have, and I think we're almost due for a break. What were the higher education goals, and what were the steps you took to earn your Doctor of Musical Arts as an African-American man, and were the challenges along the way, and did you have many mentors or classmates
Well,
in your pursuit for education? Thank you.
Thank you. I knew that I was going to college. Didn't know exactly where when I was in high school, but I ended up actually started off at UCLA my freshman year. And interesting story, I was actually on All About Community, interviewed by the attorney Robert L. Harris, and we got into a great conversation about what happened at UCLA, where there was a professor who happened to be white. And she told me that I had no potential, and she told me that I would not be successful at what I was trying to pursue.
Well, sir, let me interject one thing. I've heard a story similar to that from a Mr. Harris when he first came out here from Arkansas when he went to Tech High School. So can you say that one more time so that our audience can understand? You can't listen to racist white people tell you how stupid you are when you're more smarter than the teacher teaching. Say that one more time, sir.
Yeah, I had a professor at UCLA who happened to be white, and she told me that after I had auditioned for a separate program, that I had no potential, and that I shouldn't even consider going into voice, and that I should just stay where I'm at, and that I just had absolutely. She, in her mind, she thought that I would have no success at all, and which is very similar, of course, to what happened to Attorney Harris coming out here from Arkansas, and he was trying to enroll into Oakland Tech, and it was because of the great Mr. Blacksher's father, the original artist Blacksher, who went in and spoke on behalf of Attorney Robert Harris and said, "Hey, this young man is smart. He deserves to be here, and he deserves to be enrolled in these classes. He's going to college." And from what I was told, Mr. Blacksher Sr. would not leave until Mr. Harris was enrolled in those classes. But it's because of the advocacy. You need an advocate. You need someone to advocate for you, and we often have to lift ourselves up in this community.
I would like to say this real quick because it's so important. Parents, guardians, and others, when your kids go to school, you need to know what those white teachers are telling them what they can and can't do. Two great stories here. The first, and I want to give praise and respect for my father, artist Blacksher, who passed away in 2014, and I miss him to this day. But he stood up for Mr. Robert L. Harris when he came out here from Arkansas and went to the school and said, "Listen, you will afford this man the same opportunities as you afford all people, including white people." And boom, 20, 30, 40 years later, here we are. The same thing in your case. You spoke up for yourself. You had parents who said, Don't you listen to those undercover Ku Klux Klan. And that's what I'm going to call you, undercover Ku Klux Klan. When you tell a black boy or girl, young person, that you can't do this, don't do this, go use your hands. God was a carpenter. He used his hand. I guarantee you they got a sheet in the back of their car with a pointy hood on top of it. So thank you, Mr. Harris, for bringing that to our attention. Mr. Larry Lewis, can we call the Marines in to give our sponsors their credit?
Oh, yeah. Hang on a second. All right.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Larry.
Thank you, Mr. Donnie Glover of Black USA News and BeMoreNews.com. And be sure to tune in to Chip and Friends on Mondays, Party Marty Let's Talk on Tuesdays. For Magnolia Engineering and Construction, our vision to further the presence of Black women in the construction and engineering industry through key partnerships and building contracts in the municipal, government, and transportation sectors.
Thank you, Larry Lewis. And once again, in light of all this turmoil, when I look at first, whenever it was here, I knew I had a legal beagle buddy who was going to fight to the end. And now looking at you, Larry Lewis, I got the Marines here too. So thank you, my brother.
Right.
Thank you for working it out with me today. And thank you for being on. I also want to give thanks out to, give some recognition out to Chap and Friends on Monday. Party Marty Let's Talk on Tuesday. And I'd like to say on Wednesday night, Sister Biz with my friend and my sisters, Tamara Brown and Miss Orr, my sisters from another mother. On Friday, we have Kamal Hubbard, who will talk about the Bitcoin. And on Saturday, Mr. Donnie Glover, the original Black Wall Street. Thank you. Okay, well, we want to get back. Let's get right back to it with Dr. Phillip Harris. I look at you, young brother, and I said, if we had more rappers who were thinking that broad of not just hip hop ham, balakazam, but educating themselves to the point where they can be a role model in different areas of the music industry. Everybody wants to be $1 million rapper. And I wish I had the statistics on the people who actually become damn $1 million. How about $100,000 rapper? the numbers are very, very low. So Dr. Harris, I respect you for looking at the long term of not educating yourself in a career that young people say, hey, I'm going to be a rapper, be rich. But educating yourself into the music history, the literacy, and the understanding of what you bring to a new era and a new area of the music industry, and that's opera. Thank you, sir. I've heard you sing that baritone, and as I said on my Facebook page, you were going to bring a different tone that our audience is going to love to hear. So here we go back to get back to PhillipLHHarris.com. Please visit webpage www.PhillipLNHarris.com and learn more about this accomplished baritone from the city of diversity, Oakland, California. See, and I'm gonna expand on that because a lot of people say Oakland, that's where the rappers come from. No, that's where some of the baritones come from too. Thank you. Dr. Harris, what are you currently involved in with at this time in the musical arts? Can you discuss the following as time allows in the San Francisco Conservatory in Music? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, God is good, and I'm trying to figure out how I can better balance all that's happening. I have the great privilege. Actually, I'm right now at my main place of employment, the Head Royce School in Oakland. This is where I am full time. I'm the new performing arts chair, and the vocal music director here. I also teach one class a week at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. That class is on uh, focuses on vocal works by Black composers, Black classical composers. And then I'm the music director at Downs Memorial United Methodist Church, also in Oakland. And then I'm involved in a couple of other organizations. As I mentioned, I'm music directing Camelot with Mountain Play, and I've done some stuff with 42nd Street Moon School just this past summer as music director for a chorus line. I'm the co-chair of the student auditions for the National Association of Teachers of Singing, their local chapter here. So I try to stay busy. There may be a couple things I'm missing, but those are the main things that I'm involved with. So it's just a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
It's good work.
Before Larry fires off his next question, I want to once again challenge white media, white music producers, white movie directors. When you see a brother like this, who's sharp, educated, ready to come in and compete with some of the best people of all people, best people of all people, give them the same spotlight that you would give a 50 Cent, Too Short, or any of these other people. Because let me tell you something. When I see opera, I don't see brothers like you in there. And the only time I did is when I saw you in there. I think Hamelot, was it the conservatory in Hamelot? But Camelot. I'm thank you for
Yes,
correcting
yes,
that.
yes.
We need to see brothers like you doing stuff like that, because if you see it, you can be it. So white America, don't be scared. Embrace brothers like Dr. Harris here. Larry?
Yeah. Hey, I think I ran out of my question, but I got one of my own. First of all, I believe the only way to change the predicament of our community is if brothers like yourself, myself, Doug, if we go and get what we need to get and bring it back where we have an understanding of the culture there. And once we can bring it back, then we can share with young people and they can see that there is a path, there is a journey to success, to getting out of the neighborhood. What is it that you feel that you are doing or can do um, to help that endeavor?
That's a great question. I actually started off some music. Uh, One of my first musical opportunities in terms of teaching was at the East Oakland Youth Development Center. And Yeah, I think I was 15 or 16 at the time, so I didn't know what in the world I was doing, but I was given an opportunity to do something.
To engage.
I started off as a homework tutor there. And then, once I started talking with the executive director at the time, who's still executive director, but I think she's transitioning now out of the East Oakland Youth Development Center. But I was given an opportunity by Miss Regina Jackson, who's been a pillar in the Oakland, especially the East Oakland community for 25, almost 30 years now.
That's it.
And
That's it.
But I went to school. I graduated with her at elementary, Howard Elementary, and I think King. She went to King too.
right, that's right. That's
I don't
Where
mean
I
to,
went to.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't
Remember?
mean to tell her age.
I had, that was kind of really where I got my first start, and it was just a really thrilling experience to be able to connect with with younger people that looked like me,
Yeah.
that I could really that I felt like I could identify with. And then with that, I also got to know, I got to interact more with friends that kind of looked like me. I was in a high school that was that was diverse, but there weren't a lot of people that looked
I
like
got
me.
you.
So
St.
going
Mary's.
down to EOYDC, you know, it was like, you know, mostly, you know, Latinx, Black folk, you know, so it was fantastic doing that.
Right.
And
Right.
so, yeah, that was kind of where I got my start. And then now where I am, I'm in the place now where I've got so much stuff going on. I really do try to make sure that I can give back and volunteer. I love going down to St. Leo's and volunteering and doing things there. Of course, not so much during the pandemic anymore. But I love going down there and with some of the other organizations I'm involved with, like the National Association of Teachers of Singing. I've made it a mission with someone that I work with in that organization to ensure that we are bringing in people of color, not
Yes.
just students of color,
Yes.
but also teachers of color. And then with that, it's not just getting them at the door though, because of the inequities. We have to ensure that we give them the tools so that they will be successful. So we've been advocating for bringing in students to compete in these competitions, but in these competitions you have competition fees, and so we have found a way to waive competition fees for some of those students that are in need, that are just as talented and work just as hard, you know, but it's about, you know, being able to have that equity and to have that access that everyone else has, so that then we're all on the same playing field, so that if someone who is 5'5" next to someone who is 6'5" trying to reach something that's 9 feet tall, the person that is 5'5" that may not be able to reach it is given a ladder high enough to be able to reach what is at the top.
Yeah, I got you. I understand exactly what you're saying. That's awesome. And I call it leadership. It sounds like you had great leadership. And leadership doesn't necessarily have to come from your parents, but that when I look at the equation, the missing link out in the equation of success, I find that a lot of young people, they don't have that leadership. That foundation was never established. You know, there's no one there to stand in the gap for them. And that's the big challenge right there. And so that's what we get to do. Yeah. Great job. Keep up the great work. I love it.
Yeah,
I just love it.
absolutely. It's really been a pleasure, and I feel like I've kind of stumbled upon teaching. It wasn't something that I've kind of had it was, I guess it was initially a goal, and then it changed a little bit, and but I did not think I would be doing what I am doing now. But the more I'm doing it, the more I'm learning that, you know, it's about building relationships with people.
That's right.
It's about understanding people. It's about knowing what to say, how to say it, and especially now during the pandemic, we're back at Head Royce, and we've been learning all about the statistics of depression and suicide is on the rise, and there's so much anxiety that you know, we have to, more than ever, we have to really be sensitive to how we interact with each other, particularly with a lot of these kids. You know, with us growing up as kids, you know, we had a chance to have birthdays. We could go out and go to concerts, and we didn't have to think about, oh, we got to wear a mask or we can't be in a closed space. But some of these kids now, they're missing out on birthdays. You know, they're missing out on things that we all, you know, took for granted, on proms and all kind of stuff that we just took for
fathers.
Granted. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Fathers, mothers, and brothers and sisters, and all of that. So,
teaching's awesome.
Yeah.
Teaching is awesome. My favorite job out of all my life, it was teaching. I mean, to be able to motivate young people and to show them your passion for whatever it is you're doing, it's electric.
Yes.
You know, you ignite everybody with that. Absolutely. And oh man, and when they see that, and it's coming from somebody that looks like them, yeah, they get it, and they get it. I can do this too, especially when you're pushing that. You know, you can do this as well.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to continue to say this until the end of the show. White media, when you see a brother or brothers out there who are articulate and intelligent and communicate, and they're not rapping about women and drugs and drinking and doing stupid stuff, Interview them so that you can show many of our young Black brothers and sisters that you ain't got the year. We be chilling and we be drinking 40s and my name is Shody and I'm smoking a bloated. You know, listening to you, Dr. Harris, is inspiring to me. And Larry knows exactly what I'm talking about because Larry worked with a lot of our young boys and our young men. And Larry, how refreshing is it to you to be sitting up here to hear a brother talking about baritone, listening to music about opera? And let me tell you something. We want you, Dr. Harris, to let our audience know some of the things you got going on this fall, dates and locations, because there are brothers and sisters who don't have the access to be encouraged and motivated to do things that you're doing now. Yeah. Two things here. I'm gonna say I got a lot of questions because we got a lot more time. Yeah. Larry, I gotta let our audience have it. Our brothers and young brothers and sisters, Black boys and girls, young people, they think in order to travel the world, you got to be rapping and slapping. Tell our audience some of the places that you've traveled in this world, not in this country, but in this world doing what you do. Thank you, sir.
Are you talking to me or are you talking to Phillip? Dr. Harris?
I'm talking to Dr. Harris. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And we know the Marines went everywhere, and you can't even tell us some of the stuff you did, sir.
You know, that's a good. You know, I want to also say that that there's nothing wrong with being a rapper, of course, as we all know. But I think that we have to be careful, and we have to make sure that no matter what, we have to have a plan, and that we have to try to do our best to execute that plan, and then we need a backup plan. You know, because usually the career of a rapper is usually short-lived, and not everybody is Jay-Z, not everybody is Drake, and not everybody is Michael Jordan, not everybody is Kobe or LeBron. You know, so you have to find ways to. One thing I can say about all of those, from what I know, all of those individuals that I named are very, and rest in peace to Kobe, were very hard workers. And so above all, we must develop or maintain rather that hard work ethic. And so that is something that I'm grateful that my parents instilled in me, and I've had a great community of friends and family that have really instilled in me hard work. But now I do want to answer your question, Mr. Blacksher. So regarding, I've had some great opportunities. I'll name several and talk about them. There was one opportunity that I had in 2010. I went to Rome, Italy. There was a program that I believe still exists. It's called the International Lyric Academy. That's in Rome and Viterbo, Italy. It was my first time going to Italy. It was just after, I think, my sophomore year of college, maybe my junior year. And I sang a role, an operatic role, in Le Nozze di Figaro, which is the Marriage of Figaro. It's a very famous, it's probably Mozart's most famous opera. And I went out there, you know, by myself, but it was for 3 weeks. It was with a bunch of, you know, strangers at the time, but, you know, folks that were around my age, some a little bit younger, mostly older. And it was a 3-week program, and I had a fantastic time in Rome. I learned the role and coached it and sang it, and had a really, really wonderful experience in Rome. And then actually the next year I went to Philadelphia. This was in 2011. It was the year before I was a senior in college, and I went to the National Association of Negro Musicians, which is the oldest living. It is the oldest living music organization that is devoted to promotion and preservation of music from the African diaspora. So it primarily covers classical music, but they also highlight, you know, a little bit of jazz, a little bit of R&B, and popular music styles. and the doors opened up, and I learned all about all of these Black musicians that were not necessarily in the pop music industry, but were in the classical music industry. We often hear about Black musicians almost always either in gospel or pop or rap, especially. But I got opened up to a world of Black classical musicians. And I said, oh my gosh, I had no idea that there were Black people that studied and performed and researched classical music. So I had the wonderful chance to go to Philadelphia. I also in 2016 I went to Carnegie Hall, as you mentioned, and did a wonderful show, a wonderful performance with the amazing Jacqueline Harrison. We can talk about her in a minute, but she invited me to Carnegie Hall. Not just me, but it was with a lot of other folks. And I sang a couple of pieces there. And it was there was one piece that was by Wynton Marsalis that I sang called "My Soul Fell Down," from his oratorio "Blood on the Fields." And then I sang a duet with an amazing woman that's based in the Bay Area, Hope Briggs. We sang, I think I can't remember the name of the song now. It's escaping me, but it was a duet that we sang with the chorus. It's either it wasn't "Don't You Let Nobody Turn You Around." I can't remember the title at this moment. But that was a great chance to go to New York and to sing there. And then that was 2016. 2017, I went to the Aspen Music Festival and sang there with the Aspen Opera Center, and that was a fantastic time to get more experience and to learn more people, and to get to know more people around the country. The year before that, or 2 years before that, actually, I went to Hawaii and sung with the Hawaii Performing Arts Festival, and learned a lot there, and got to sing more roles, and I learned more people across the country, nationally. And actually, I'm also forgetting, in 2013, I went to opera in the Ozarks for 8 weeks in the Sticks of Arkansas, which is where my father is from. So went down there to the exact city was Beaver, Arkansas.
Let me ask you something. When you were in the Ozarks of Arkansas, because my family's from Arkansas too. When you were in the Ozarks of Arkansas, give me a brief. I'm trying to picture a brother singing opera in the Ozarks of Arkansas. Help me put that in some kind of a context.
Yeah, well, I can say there in the program there were. I'm trying to remember. There were probably about maybe 50 of us total in the program, and we were a wide range of people from as young as maybe 19 to as old as 27. I think at that point I was 22 or 3. There were not too many brothers. I can say that.
I could say that too, and I wasn't even there.
Yeah, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the only brother that really comes to my mind is still a really good friend of mine. His name is Darren Drone. Okay. He's the only brother I can. I do remember there were some other sisters, but in terms of the brothers, it was very, very few of us there. But we had a good time, and we were all treated well, and we were treated with respect, and and we didn't go really outside of that bubble of where we were, because we know that still racism is still alive, especially in the South.
I was gonna say, I hope y'all stayed within the compound down there in the Ozarks. If you get lost in the Ozarks, you'll never get out.
Right.
My grandfather used to tell me when I visited back in the 70s, he said, "Boy, be home before dark, and don't go down certain roads and streets because they will never find you." So I wonder if you heard the same thing when you were down there.
Yes. Yeah, I made sure that if I ever left the campus, of course, I didn't have a car, but if I did leave the campus, I made sure that I went with a whole bunch of my white friends. I needed some protection.
And wait a minute, what state was this again?
Arkansas.
Thank you.
Right.
Larry, did you have some? Yes, because I got it, because we got some more time here. If you have any more questions you want to ask me, please do. I'm learning so much.
I can't think of any right now, but I tell you what, you guys talking about Arkansas. I had some friends in the military from Arkansas, and boy, they just were fun people.
Yeah.
Just fun.
Yeah. Well, it was a great program. I had the great chance to sing a couple of really fantastic roles there. So that was in 2013, and then I'd like to probably just continue to still answer your question, Mr. Blacksher, about where else the my musical pursuits have taken me. In 2019, I believe it was, I sang at Lincoln Center in New York. So it wasn't actually on the actual Lincoln Center in that specific location. It was at like the Lincoln Center Bruno Walter Auditorium. It was connected with the Lincoln Center, so it was part of Lincoln Center, just not the exact famous location that everyone thinks of. It was at
Right.
Walter Auditorium, and that was a wonderful concert. That was all primary. It was all exclusively spirituals, and we highlighted three fantastic composers of spirituals or arrangers of spirituals: Jacqueline Harrison, Roland Carter, and Lena McLean. And again, it was because of that early introduction in 2011 that I got kind of opened up to this world of classical of Black classical musicians and singers. And then I think later that year, I think I had the chance. This was before the pandemic or so. It was either later that year or the year before. I had the chance to sing with San Francisco Symphony in their concert called "Deck the Hall," and that was great because there was actually, and for that concert there was a Black conductor.
I gotta ask you this question: how many Black conductors out there that you know of? And you seem to be well versed with what's going on.
Yeah, so I can say there are definitely some, but I can count them on both hands. There are some, but there are not enough. And just like in any industry, it's harder for them to break down the doors of these symphony halls and these opera halls because most of the administration is of the other persuasion, and so they have a hard time. Anytime if you have a Black man or woman coming into a organization that's primarily Caucasian, and they have any sort of they know who they are and they have any sort of intellect and they're confident, that is almost always, I will say, very intimidating. And
I gotta ask you this, brother, because I've been to a couple of your plays where I've looked on stage and I looked to the left of you and I looked to the right of you and then I looked at you. You were the only thing of color on that stage. How, in your opinion, first, can we influence, entice, encourage more brothers and sisters to get involved in this? And second, tell our audience the challenges that you face and that you're still facing, because they still have a lot of operas going on. And just listening to you here, I see some great things on the horizon for you. Share that with us, sir.
yeah, so it's yeah, that is true. There's sometimes where I've been in a lot of performances and programs where I've often been the only person. Um, I think I'm thankful for my parents that have you know taught me how to navigate in different spaces and places, and that is one thing that I try to pass on to my students who are of color. To that you have to first know who you are,
Yeah.
and then you have to learn how to navigate in whatever place and space you are in. So that's been really, really important for me. In terms of getting other people involved or younger people involved, I think the number one thing is just exposure. So just like how my grandmother, who wasn't trying to
Yeah.
turn me into a musician, but I was in her house and she happened to turn it on, and I was listening, and at that point I didn't think anything of it. But just having people in your life that will expose you to things, that's really how learning and that's how we can better inform our lives, is that if we are exposed to different things. And so I would say that exposure is the number one element. So and exposure in a lot of ways. So whether that's getting folks that are, if there's a school, sort of a thing, although now COVID has, altered a lot of things, but in a normal world, you can maybe get in some performers and you can get them into a school assembly. You can go and take singer, or you can go take young people to go watch a sort of a concert or an opera. You can turn on a CD. You can go on YouTube. There's so much stuff on YouTube now. You don't even have to leave your house. That's another form of exposure and experience. And then, of course, connecting young people with other teachers and mentors, because that's another way that they can certainly be connected and to be in community. So a lot of the arts is just about connection and community. And so I'm not here to advocate to say, hey, if you're young, if you're younger than I am, you need to be in this business. I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is that I do believe in hard work and hoping that you can find your passion, and not just find your passion, but hopefully within your passion you can make a living through your passion. And then, recognizing that exposure is really the number one element. Life is not just about music. It's not just about science. It's not just about math. Life is about everything. And so exposure is the number one.
That's right.
I have.
That's right. I couldn't agree with you more.
Go ahead, Larry.
I was going to say, you sound like a visionary.
Yes.
And I'm curious
Yes.
to know what your
A leader.
what your vision is for the future. We're struggling at the church with young people. They are going a different way, and the church begins to look at, we train the next man up, but there are not enough men to be next man up in the church these days. At least not in the traditional churches that we've grown up and learned from. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I can't say I have all the answers, but I've definitely thought about this. I've been involved in a number of different churches all across California and in different areas of the country. And it seems like kind of the farther away we've gotten from those early camp meetings that none of us were around for, when it was the day of rest that we had during slavery.
Yeah.
When Black people really came together and said, okay, well, this is our time. We are going to create our own sacred worship space because we don't identify with massa. We are going to do it. It seems like the farther away we've gotten from that time, and I don't know if our sense of community has been not as connected because of that separation
That was the place.
time.
Yeah, that was the place where we connected at.
Right, and then of course social media also plays a factor into that as well. So I think that, but I think something I can really identify with is that I believe that we meaning me, have to find different ways to represent and to reconnect younger people to the Lord, and not and with that, sometimes we have to do things differently, because if you do the same thing the same way, for instance, if it comes time to preach and the preacher always did, and this is not to knock on preacher, but if a preacher gives a sermon, and if at the end of every sermon they're always doing a shout chorus, and so if things become so monotonous, this is a generation where TikTok is 15 seconds, so we have to find a way to grab their attention in a quick way, but it has to be meaningful, and it has to be in a way that they meaning me as well, can then somehow connect. So I think that the church has to redefine, perhaps some churches have to redefine and reshape how we are presenting God to our congregation. Because if we if we present God as this being that is always looking down and judging us, which of course the God will come to judge the living and the dead. That is Bible. But we have to also be mindful that God is compassionate, and that God, He's so compassionate that He gave His only Son, so that we might not have everlasting life. So we have to come from the mindset of that, and also just being more practical. And I'll say for myself, as church leaders, we could or should be more transparent with how we connect and communicate with our congregation. Because, there's often an assumption that, well, a spiritual leader has to be a certain way. But a spiritual leader doesn't have to be a certain way. A spiritual leader can be progressing. If you read Paul, if you read all of the stuff that Paul wrote in the New Testament, Paul went through a lot, but we often revere Paul as this great biblical figure. But Paul messed up. Paul went to jail. He was beaten and whipped, and Paul went to jail not because he did something wrong, but because he did something right.
Yeah.
And so we have to really take apart what is biblically there, and in my opinion, presenting it in a different way, not just doing the same old thing, because this is a new generation, and if we are trying to reach the masses, then I think there could be a way to do it, and I think that some of it could be with reshaping how we have always done things.
Absolutely. That's a good point. I think that your generation is at a point right now where we typically begin to take over the church. I was in my early 30s, and the people that are right now, the deacons and the ministers and whatnot, they're typically been there 20 years, 25 years. Yeah. And I mean, we're still kind of in betweeners. We're the baby boomers. We're still kind of the in-betweeners. But a new day is coming.
Yes, absolutely.
Dr. Harris, let me just say this. This has been a wonderful, wonderful interview to have a young brother like you, to call him, and not a medical doctor, but a doctor in music, who's articulate, intelligent, and is in a field that, as you said, you can probably count on your hand how many brothers who are conductors and who are involved in this field. And it's a very lucrative field. I got two things to ask you before we wrap up, and ask you to give us a note, a baritone note, before on a musical selection that you've chosen today. Two things. First, thank you for saying master, because a lot of our brothers and sisters don't know what master means. They hear master, P rapper, master, but master in the sense of where white people were expecting black people to say, yes, a master, yes, a master. It's degrading, it's ignorant, and those of you young people who are out there doing it, stop it. We left that 100 years ago. So thank you for saying that, because I hear some brothers, yeah, master, and they're joking, but it's not a joke. That's what they expected us to do. Can you tell me, tell my brother Larry, and tell our audience how you felt singing at the Carnegie Hall?
Yeah.
It was fantastic. I will give you the spark notes, or the short version. It happened. It was Sunday, May 8th, 2016. So it was Mother's Day Sunday. It was a wonderful time. My mother was there, father was there, sister was there, my aunt was there, who was on this show, of course, and my grandmother was there. I think at that time she was 98.
Wow.
She came from North Carolina, and it was just a wonderful time. There were two pieces that I had mentioned prior that I sang there. And as I mentioned, Jacqueline Harrison was the conductor. We were all doing her music. And I had the great privilege of singing with some phenomenal people. Carl DuPont was there, Hope Briggs, Sean Alice White, She brought in a lot of soloists and brought in also some choirs to sing there at Carnegie, and it was just a fabulous afternoon of some wonderful music that was of sacred text, or that had a sort of a biblical undercurrent, and it was just a wonderful, magical event. And I have pictures of it, and it was just fantastic.
How many brothers and sisters there who look like you were there on the stage?
On the stage, actually, so oddly enough, with the soloist, we were all Black, and the reason why is that this concert was devoted to spirituals.
Okay,
So
I figured it was a twist in there.
Yeah. So this concert was specifically devoted for spirituals. However, not everybody was Black. In terms of the singers that were in the choruses, there were several folks that were not Black that were in the chorus, and there was also another conductor of one of the choruses who was white, and so it was sort of a mixed, diverse crowd in terms of the larger numbers. So it was just an amazing experience.
Well, this has been an amazing show with you on it. Larry, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask Dr. Harris to give us a musical selection that he has chosen for us today. As we have 8 minutes left before we close out, but lay it on us, Doctor.
Yeah, so I'll just introduce it. This is, I mentioned Jacqueline Hairston earlier. She's been a wonderful mentor of mine and a pillar in terms of particularly classical music and the preservation of the Negro spiritual, as many people refer to it as. This is her version of a song called "A Change Has Got to Come," which should not be confused with the incredible Sam Cooke's version. I could go on about Sam Cooke. Sam Cooke was another, I mean, phenomenal visionary. Berry Gordy, before there was Berry Gordy, creating his own. Not only was he writing his own songs, but he tried to own his own masters and start his own record label. And in my opinion, I think that's why Sam Cooke was assassinated, because he was gaining too much power as a Black man, as a young Black man, and he was seen as a threat to the white executive producers because of his vision. But that was Sam Cooke. We're talking about Jacqueline Hairston. So this is "A Change Has Got to Come."
In the time of change, I'm pressing on. I've got to move for the break of dawn. I'll not look back, for I must tell some that the world moves on when the change will come. When you don't look back, except in times gone by, He'll deliver you if you will but try. He'll say, press right on, for He'll see you through. And when changes come, He will stick by you. A change has got to come. It sure will profit some. We must accept the new day. With God, I'm pressing on. side. 'Cause he's been so good to me. He showed me how that a change will set me free. I'm pressing on, yes, I'm pressing on. 'Cause some changes are bound to come.
My new brother from another mother. Outstanding interview today. We're running with about 4 minutes, so I'm going to shoot off some shots before we close it out. Thank you. And happy birthday to Dr. Ashley Coleman, who found out at the last minute she had tickets to go out of town, so we didn't get our dose of mental therapy, but I can assure you, all the therapy that she's given, I look back at some of our previous tapes, and of course, my brother, Larry Lewis. Thank you, man, for riding shotgun with me. And once again, I got the Marines with me, so I'm not worried about nothing. Thank you, my brother, Larry.
Bless you. You have full command of that voice, brother.
Yes. Isn't he awesome?
Full command.
Oh, my God. I saw your eyes roll back in your head, Larry. I was like,
bro.
oh.
I took off.
He was
gone.
We also want to congratulations to Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, candidate for California 18th Assembly District and securing a place in the runoff election scheduled August 31st. Learn more about Janani Ramachandran. Visit Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to review. Her platform is Janani for California. Janani4California.com. Also, my views politically do not reflect the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. They're my own views. So I wanted to get that clear because the sign is above my head here. Once again, thank you to our guest and noted baritone, Mr. Phillip Harris. Be sure to visit his page at www.philiplnharris.com and see all his upcoming engagements. Those of you in need of a talented voice coach should connect with Dr. Harris, both in person or Zoom. Instruction is available. And special shout out to Donnie Glover, the person who put this podcast group of shows together. Brother, we appreciate you and keep up the great work. We love you. And current sponsor, Magnolia Engineering and Construction. Tammy Willis, you are my hero. No, excuse me. You are my shero. Keep up the good work, young lady. I look to see you out there building some great things in the near future. We also have a network of shows hosted by Mr. Donnie Glover, such as Chap and Friends on Mondays, Party Marty Let's Talk on Tuesdays, and my sister from another mother, Tamara Brown, and her co-host, Mrs. Orr, Nicole Orr, every Wednesday. Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard on Friday. So be sure to check out these Black voices and guiding lights in our community. I want to say this emphatically. We thank all of you Black men and women, both young, Dr. Phillip, and older OGs. Are we triple OGs or regular OGs, Larry?
I think we doubles.
We doubles, okay. We double OG. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. And remember, Together, we can listen, we can learn, and share because I know you care. This is Doug Blacksher of the Black Business Roundtable. God bless and good night. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.